This is Jeremy Jorgensen, host of the YFI podcast, proud member of the Education Podcast Network. Each show on the network is independently owned, and the views expressed may not represent those of other podcasts. For the best education podcasts, visit edupodcastnetwork.com.
Hey, welcome back. Steve here, and today I'm talking with Ebony Turner-Bailey. Ebony is a licensed speech-language pathologist and the founder and executive director of Prime Speech Solutions. So much to learn today. You are awesome. Thanks for listening. Thanks for sharing. Enjoy your day.
It's the Education Podcast, your favorite show, with lots of groovy guests and they share what they know. So crank it up to 10 and let your neighbors know that here's another show with Dr. Steve Milletto. Teaching, learning, leading, K-12. Teaching, learning, leading, K-12. Teaching, learning, leading, K-12. With Dr. Steve Milletto.
Ebony Turner-Bailey is a licensed speech-language pathologist, the founder and executive director of Prime Speech Solutions. She obtained her Master's of Science in Speech-Language Pathology from Teachers College, Columbia University. Ebony received her Master's of Science from Teachers College, Columbia University. She holds certifications in teaching students with speech and language disabilities and LSVT LOUD for individuals with Parkinson's disease and other neurologically based communication difficulties. Ebony, welcome to the show and say hi to everyone.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, Stephen.
Well, it's great to have you here, Ebony. Thanks so much for joining me. And let's talk about you first. You're a speech-language pathologist. Explain what you do in that role.
Okay, so currently I work with children mostly doing speech-language pathology. And what I work with them on are building their communication skills. When language is a challenge, we work on expanding or improving their language skills as well, building social skills, improving cognitive communication, and working on swallowing if they have difficulties with that.
Oh, that's interesting. That's we cover a gambit there.
It is. It's quite a bit. In my adult, when I work with the adults, we work on professional development. So this, engaging in presentation skills and that kind of stuff. So it is the gamut, and it goes from practically little ones to all the way up in the the spectrum of life. So
I understand. Very cool. All right, so you're the founder and executive director of Prime Speech Solutions. What is its purpose, and what drove you to create the company?
So my slogan is helping you share your voice with the world. And that's exactly what it is that I hope to do with this company. I started this practice, it was in my head when I was in school. And I really had an urgency to want to help. And when I was working in the New York City Department of Ed, I was a speech pathologist, and I just felt like I could work and help the children so much more if I was able to get a relationship with their parents. And that was something that I wasn't always able to do in the school system because I was a speech teacher and not their regular teacher. So they didn't always come up to me in parent-teacher conference. And even if I was reaching out, I didn't always get that communication. And so, and even with all of that, there were some things that when I worked in the school system, I could see so much more that a child could work on, but we had the goals that were aligned with meeting their academics. And so I felt like I really wanted to help the child become a whole person, and not like they're not, right? But like really work on some of those other skills that would help them even more in school because they were missing out on that piece. I feel like I could really work on those things while being in the private sector.
I can understand. I know I've worked with many speech pathologists in the school settings, and a lot of times they're really going fast and they're working on with lots of children at the same time type of thing, and they're going here and going there, and so they've only got so much time to commit. And so I can see how having your own operation, your own organization to work through that you would be able then to create more personalization of what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Awesome. All right. So let's talk a little bit about the different things that you run into and what you do here. So why do you think communication challenges often go unnoticed?
So I think it's a number of reasons. For one, sometimes parents don't go to their expected appointments on time. So when you miss out on those appointments, sometimes questions get missed, but also sometimes questions are not quite, they're not stated in the right way to get the right answer. Because I've even been asked on some of my appointments as well. And, I go back home and I'm like, if they would have said this, I would have responded in this way. But the way that they asked the question, I said this, and it doesn't seem like there's an issue. And so sometimes the questions are not fully in depth, or they're not quite triggering the right word to help another parent or to help a parent be able to express themselves. Some parents don't really even know what typical or atypical is, and that is a big factor. Being able to understand where their child lies in comparison, or what is quote unquote normal or typical, really helps a parent to understand what they should be asking. Sometimes parents don't know that they should be telling the doctor, the pediatrician, that speech is a problem, or a communication or a social issue is a problem or a challenge for their child. And those things, sometimes parents just go to the visit if their child is only sick, or if their child should just be confirmed that their child is okay. And so knowing that you can speak to your pediatrician about these things is also important. Sometimes we're influenced by family members, and our family members kind of tell us, oh, that's okay. So-and-so had the same thing, and he turned out okay. And so while that was okay years ago, because we didn't have as much information, now we have more information. And with that, your child can get services or the assistance, or you can get strategies to help support your child, and so that your child can get where they need to be. And then also, parents are so inundated with the responsibilities of being a parent, being an adult, that they often may forget at the time of their appointment the concerns that they had. I have some parents who try to write things down for our appointments, and that's always helpful. Being able to refer to some of your concerns and being able to present that at the doctor's appointment, that would really help to know if your child is on point or not. And then that last thing is that sometimes behaviors don't happen everywhere. So a parent may not even know that there is a concern, because the concerns may happen more at school or in settings that the child may not be placed in as much. And so you may not see it. And the child may be perfectly fine when you're with them or when you're in your situations. But when you take them out and you're no longer with them, that's when the behaviors arise and you're not aware of it. And so those are some of the ways that behaviors can go unnoticed and people can get misdiagnosed.
Appreciate you sharing that, because I totally understand. Both my sons are grown now and out in the work world and all that. But when child comes home and you're talking with them and you're saying things to them, they a lot of times the conversations go like this: "How'd your day go?" "Oh, good." So what'd you do today?" "Just stuff." And there's not enough talking going on that really lends itself to understanding if there might be some sort of difficulty, especially as a parent, because I'm sure they're talking their heads off to some teacher or to somebody at the school, but it's like come home and gee, Dad, why you give me the third degree? It's like, oh, I just want to know how your day went.
Yes. Yes. You know what I tell parents who have concerns about that? I say, pick something that, so nowadays, a lot of schools will send a little picture of something that your child did. And so if they do, I try to tell them, talk about that, refer to that, and see if they'll elaborate on it. Oh, did you make a little St. Patrick's picture today or something? And then sometimes you can get a little bit more out of your child, or if you show them the picture, it kind of helps them to refer to a point. And then for older children, it's tough, but maybe you could talk about a favorite subject if they happen to have one, or, something that was quirky for the day or funny, to just get them to really think to something very specific so that they can elaborate on it.
Love that. That's a great suggestion there, because that's, I only wish that we'd had that conversation a long time ago, though.
I know. Listen, I got my own little ones, and I'm always trying to find a way, because he will just say everything was great. And I'm like, really?
There you go. It's like,
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I always just say to my son, so what you're really telling me is, I'm good, Dad. Now you're bothering me. Go away.
Yes. Ultimately, yes. That is what he's saying. Unspoken words.
Yes. All right. So let's talk about this. What are some of the early signs of speech and language delays in children? What are things that we should be looking for?
So early signs start very early. I mean, they can start as young as 6 to 9 months. So those are the beginning points of when some of the early language skills start to display themselves. So not when a child is not able to alert themselves to sound, turn their head when they hear a loud noise, or jump if it scares them, those are things that not only is that clearly you might need hearing or seeing about if their hearing is okay, but also just that alertness of knowing that something else is around, and being startled by it. Also understanding their awareness of, are they hypersensitive or not sensitive at all? That's also something that you want to be keen on. How's your child responding to the sound? Also around that age, children start to smile and look at you and respond when you're smiling back at them. And those are things that parents should be aware of and should be looking for. And I would say by the age of 1.5, if those skills have not developed and your child is not doing those things, that is something to start to be a concern for you, okay? It is a concern at that point. But also by the age of 1.5, if your child is not using at least one word utterances to label objects like ball, or if they're, calling mama or dada, these are things, if they're not doing this by 1.5, you should be concerned. If they're not, following simple directions, get the ball, come to mama, something to that effect. These are major concerns, and you need to start speaking to your pediatrician. By the ages between 2 and 3, a child should consistently be doing all of those things that we just talked about, but also gesturing as well. That also is a concern if they're not able to do that by 1.5. And gesturing by pointing, putting arms up in the air for picking them up, something to kind of, if they don't have the words, they're using some other form, pulling you to get things. Now, by 2 to 3, the child should also be able to follow directions consistently, right? And produce simple sentences, to talk about the things in their world around them, what they want, what they don't want, and then also continue to do those things that we previously spoke about. Now, at any point, if there's any regression in anything that we discussed, there is a huge concern, because these are skills that are built upon as a child gets older, those are not skills that go away. So if you really think and you're like, hey, my child, they used to, come when I called their name. Now they don't even move. They don't turn their head. These are areas that you want to speak to your child's pediatrician about.
Gotcha. I appreciate you talking about that. That's, there's so many different, in the age bracket in which I am, I've lost the hearing in one of my ears. I cannot be fixed. All right. And so listening to some of the stuff you're talking about, I totally can understand. Cause like my doctors have told me that there's things that you have to do. Like, for example, the left ear overcompensates for the right ear. So then I often turn the wrong way when somebody is trying to get my attention from the right side. Right. It sounds like it's coming from the left side. And so I'm easily startled too, which is interesting. And I can only imagine as you see those signs. And so I have to tell people, I can't hear you over here. So if you see me turn the wrong way or whatever, just know that I'm not being funny. This is
yes. People don't think that the hearing is a part of that communication, but it absolutely is, because you need it to be in sight, right? Because sometimes you can't understand, sometimes I can't understand my own child, and I'm looking at his lips, trying to build a connection, right? And so all of these things are so important for communication, and we just don't always think about it because we think it's just the lips and the sound coming out and how it's manipulated, but it's all of these pieces. And especially as you have different experiences in life, some are helpful to helping you understand even more. So
it's pretty amazing, because it's said that I learn more about it once I get old enough. You can understand why it does not get noticed in the beginning if you're not really paying attention to certain things that should be happening. So I appreciate you talking about that. All right, so let's talk about this. Could you talk about the steps that a parent or teacher should take if they're concerned that a child or their child is having some difficulty with communication and speech?
Yes. So I always also tell parents to write down their concerns of what they're seeing at home. And also write down some of their strengths, because sometimes teachers are not seeing the same things at school. Again, the environment places a lot of different expectations on a child, and then they're with other students, different personalities. It brings out different things out of your own child, different stimulants, and, the school environment just has so much going on. It's a pretty exciting space to be in. So a parent should speak to the classroom teacher first and share their concerns. Determine how the child is performing in the classroom, because sometimes parents are unaware that the child is struggling because of whatever's going on in their environment. You also want to speak to the pediatrician, and once again, because if there are true concerns, they can give you a referral for a speech therapy evaluation. And you can also have one done at the school. Either way, when you go to the one at the school, they would request it in writing, and you should be able to get something where it's in the course of the child's school day. But, parents should always speak to the classroom teacher first and see how their child performs and where those behaviors or concerns lie, because it may not even present itself in the classroom like it does at home.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's it's so important to understand, because this is going to take me to another part of this, which is once some areas are identified or something like this, and a child is receiving services. A lot of times that can be very scary for a parent, and especially when they get into the situation with an IEP, lots of people using big words, and it becomes a situation where parent needs some guidance in understanding how they should approach this, and ultimately, this is my question, which is, how should a parent advocate for her child during an IEP or a school evaluation of their child?
Okay. Great question. So a parent, I always tell a parent to come with someone else because sometimes it can be very intimidating in an IEP meeting because there's all of these professionals and just you who, it can be an intimidating space. And some parents don't feel comfortable in the school environment. And so having a support of a family member, a therapist that maybe your child sees, or sometimes you can also have one come in that you don't have a relationship with yet, but you can establish one to help you understand what it is that the professionals are saying to you. So parents should always bring an advocate, a family member, or a therapist if they can to come to support them when they go in the meeting, especially a professional who understands some of the things that the child is presenting behaviors in, because they can really explain what it is that the teachers and the therapists that work with your child are the strategies or the skills that they want to work on, so that you can understand better what it is that they're trying to express. As a parent, you need to take a lot of notes, and you need to ask as many questions as possible. Ask them to break things down so you understand, how is this strategy or how is this going to really help my child meet their goal? How is it going to help my child with their behaviors? And then you need to also make sure that you have a list of your child's needs. Do they need support with academics only? Or is there behavior needs? Are there sensory needs that your child has? Social, communication? Make sure you bring that to the table too, so that they can help your child in those areas. Once you've completed the meeting, they also come with you. They expect you to sign the document. You don't always have to sign it on the spot. You can take it home, review it, and if you have a professional at that point, you could also ask them to review it and kind of discuss with you as well. But having them in person would be the best option. And make sure you get your questions answered. And if you have to, ask questions between the time that you sign as well. But always, as a parent, keep that line of communication open with the IEP team so they know that changes are happening. Maybe your child, there needs to be an adjustment. Don't just let it come to the next IEP meeting and have a whole year of, things happen that didn't have to happen. Keep that dialogue open so that you can try to make changes and make improvements for your child.
That's awesome. One of the things that, as a former high school principal, I used to encourage my special education teams to make sure that they take time to really consider what it's like to be in the parent's shoes, so that they understand why they might not say something, why they might not ask a question, and especially when they're faced with something that there's a lot of acronyms for or something like this, and they may not really understand what it is that you're talking about. And so it's so important to because it shouldn't be that it shouldn't be a combative interaction. The IEP should be instead it's supposed to be helping their child. We're working together to help your child, that type of thing. And
yes.
So I love the thoughts that you're sharing. Thank you. All right, so let's talk about this. Could you share your thoughts about finding trustworthy speech therapy resources? And what goes with that is, it's tough enough in our world, but also how about speaking to those areas that are underserved, where it might be even more difficult to find those good resources? What do you think?
So, I think that ASHA is the site that, speech therapists, professionals, they use, but parents can use too. It's a lot of resources and information, milestone information, developmental explanations on diseases, and how therapy works. So you can get a lot of information about where your child or you are and how, a disease affects someone. The National Stuttering Association is another one. You can get a lot of information, support groups, and information on stuttering, and it's helpful to families. They have little scenarios and things for people who stutter can view and see others like them so that they can, feel connected, because sometimes it can feel isolated. Mommy Speech Therapy is a great one because they provide information, and then they also provide some resources for you to use, and little printables and things for you to kind of, make a little bit of a mini session at home, perhaps. If you're into providing work at home for your little one. And then that Hannon Center, they also provide informational resources for parents and families. And pathways.org, that's another one that I send parents to get information on child development.
Very nice. Very nice. Appreciate you sharing those. All right. So let's talk a little bit about autistic children for a minute. What needs to be addressed to support autistic children with social communication? I mean, because we have different categories on the spectrum and such. Can you talk a little bit to that?
Yes. So I think in order to work with a person on the spectrum, I like to start with finding out what their interests are. Sometimes once I know that, it really helps me to build a connection with them, and we are able to establish joint attention once we know or have something that they're really interested in. And joint attention is when you and a child are looking at the same thing at the same time, and they're kind of looking back. And a lot of times this is typically around that like one-ish age, 1 year old, and maybe even slightly before, where they're kind of looking to the parent to see, are you looking at this like I'm looking at this? And, like there's an engagement in play. And so once that's established, a lot of times you kind of got their attention. And so to me, language can start there. Another thing that I like to observe for when I'm working with someone on the spectrum is to observe their sensory needs. If those are not met, then there is going to be a challenge trying to get them to do anything else. If they are, and sometimes parents don't really know what those sensory needs are or know it to express it, right? They might say, oh, they like to hum or something to that effect, but they don't realize that is, they're seeking something with that, with those behaviors. And so once we identify some of those sensory needs and we try to support them, then we can also get them to focus more and satiate that sensory need. And sometimes that might even help them to translate that into some form of language or communication. And then I also like to provide visuals. So visuals really help because if a child is nonverbal, then that can help support them. But even when they are verbal, sometimes they don't always, they need help with processing information, but also they don't always recall the name of the word, but they can point to that picture, or once they see it, it helps to jog their memory so that they can really communicate in one of the ways that they prefer until we can get them to even move that beyond. And so those levels are some of the foundational things that I think are most effective. And when I work with my students, building that focus is key, because then we're able to, start working on their language.
Excellent. Appreciate you talking about that. As I've shared that I was a high school principal and over a bunch of years, and there's a young man that I'll never forget who is autistic needs and the challenges that he had that we were having to address. One of the things that started, he was very good at math. He was very good at doing subjects like that too. And what was funny though was that, and he was a very nice young man, and he communicated in the way in which he did. But when he got about 14, 15, right in that age bracket, his world started changing a lot, and he started not really following some rules that he was supposed to. and I'll give you an example. He started getting on the wrong bus on purpose. And it turned out that what was happening in his world was that he was noticing girls. And so young ladies who had been nice to him or chit-chatting with him, he might follow them on their bus and hang out with them. And the bus driver would say, hey, he's on our bus again. But it's just interesting how when you're talking about needs of children, keeping in mind that there are all kinds of variables that might be causing challenges.
And you're right. I talked about the littles, but you're absolutely right. Like identifying what is of interest at the time and what's kind of possibly going on in a child's world or a young adult's world is key, because we sometimes see them as this academic way, but also we have to think about what their body and their hormones and those things are going through too. And so identifying those things, because sometimes that is where their interests are. So
important, because I think sometimes we just totally forget about that. You get focused on those academic challenges, and it's like, wait, there's more here. There's more going on.
There is more going on. I have one now. He is focused on getting a license. So that's all he wants to talk about. So yes.
That is his world now, right?
That is his world. Yes.
I love that. All right. Something that you mentioned in your bio is that an area that you specialize in is voice therapy for adults, including those with Parkinson's disease. Could you share a little bit about this?
Okay. Yes. So I don't currently do it now, but I have worked with adults, especially with Parkinson's disease, to help build their to help improve their vocal volume. So as you may know, people with Parkinson's tend to have difficulty with their voices, where their vocal volume might be a little muted, might be weak. And so in order to improve that, they need LSVT LOUD was one of the strategies that I worked with patients with to improve their vocal volume and to give their vocal quality more of a stronger vocal quality. And through a series of exercises, those patients learn to speak louder, gain confidence, and improve their vocal volume and quality.
All right. So let's talk about this. Let's do a scenario here. If you were presenting at a conference where the audience is composed of classroom teachers and your focus was supporting students with speech needs, what's something that you'd tell that group, especially something that you'd want them talking about when they left your talk?
Okay. Well, one of the things would be to identify a child's strengths. When you identify their strengths and try to build up off of that, like put the challenge in the midst of their strengths, I think you see a really motivated student. But when you try to push through something that they really don't like, you're going to see resistance. And so I have one student where if I try to do regular cutout paper and counting or something very organized in that way, he does not want to do it. But if I put Maui from Moana in the space, he will do that same activity that he turned away. Awesome. So it's like, if you find their interest, but also that thing that they're really good at, sometimes you can really get that child to push further through those most challenging activities. Providing encouragement despite the behaviors that you might be seeing is another thing that really, I think, helps to drive a child to want to do better. That's key for working with children in general and people in general. And also having visuals handy, that's helpful for students with processing information, because if they're not able to recall a memory and they feel the pressure of not knowing, at least if you have a picture or something for them to choose between, then they can possibly find the words or at least give you a response and feel successful in that moment. And I think the last thing that I would suggest is breaking things down. So sometimes I've given, a full sheet. I presented a full sheet in front of a child, and it may have had just 5 problems on it, or even 3. And sometimes I just had, and they're like, I can't do it. Nope. And if I fold that paper back and just show them one at a time, that leads to a child wanting to try to do it much more. So sometimes it's the information and their ability to process it. It can be too much. And as teachers, as therapists, we're goal-oriented a lot of times. But if we just step back and say, hey, we can still meet the same goal if we just take, just show them one thing at a time, it'll be a better day, moment, session for this child and for me. So, sometimes just taking away some of the heavy load or the big picture and breaking it down into smaller chunks really helps children. And I would think that would help teachers as well, working with children.
Excellent. Appreciate it. All right, we're about to finish up. And so, Ebony, before we go, I got these last 2 questions. And the first one's like this. If someone wanted to follow up and connect with you and or learn more, where would you send them?
You can find me at www.primespeechsolutions.com. You can call us at 908-899-3399. And we're in Springfield, New Jersey at 100 Morris Avenue, Suite 103A. And you can also find us on Instagram at Prime Speech.
Excellent. I will put that information in my show notes so that they can easily find that. So good stuff. All right. So here's the last question I want to ask you, and it goes like this. Do you have a teacher in your past who made a difference in your life? If so, who was it, and what would you say if given the chance to say thank you?
Okay. So, Stephen, I come from a family of teachers, my mom, my grandmother, my aunt, and they were amazing, of course. But if I had to choose one that was not related, I would choose my 5th grade social studies teacher, Miss Gathers. I would say thank you to her because while I was exposed to African-American culture and important individuals in history, she exposed me to a different side of the literature and, exposure to plays written by African-American folklore, all kinds of things. And, at the age that I was, it was a lot. It was intense, and I needed the support of those teachers in my life to help me fully understand it. But once I got it, I never lost those stories. And, I still remember them today. Some of them have become, major plays that we can see on TV. And so, it really brings back so many memories. But also the thing that I loved and that I really cherish that she helped me with was she worked on genealogy with us. And that was the first time that I was able to see me, learn about me, and identify where I fit in my family and kind of in the world. But it was, really, it was a new perspective. And so I had never done that before. And so I was able to pinpoint all the things, back so many years and see how we all became us, as a family. And so I really appreciate the perspective she gave me on myself and how I fit in the world and in my family and in my culture, and understand more about that. So I would thank her for that.
I love it. That is awesome. I appreciate you sharing. And Ebony, thank you so much for talking with us about Prime Speech Solutions, children and speech needs, IEPs, and finding resources for children and families. I love your energy and I love your positive focus. That is so cool. Thank you so much. Wishing you the best in all you do.
Thank you, Stephen. This was a pleasure. I'm so happy to have shared so much. Thank you.